Several open volunteer positions on local boards and committees, including the following: Budget Committee, Planning Board, Land Use Board of Appeals, Economic Development Committee, Board of Assessment Review, Voter Registration Board of Appeals. If you are interested in serving your community, please complete an appointment application form available at www.fairfieldme.com or at the town office. Appointments are made at the Town Council's January annual organizational meeting. Non-essential town services will be closed on November 22nd and 23rd in observance of Thanksgiving holiday. Public hearings, we have none. Third order business, public comments. Members of the public may speak to the council on any item or reserve the right to speak on a specific item that is on a meeting agenda when the item is addressed. Is there anyone from the council that wishes to speak at this time or reserve a right? Seeing that, moving on.
Okay.
Fourth order of business, reports from staff and committees. Town manager's report.
So, on October 30th, I attended a Cape Cod Board of Directors meeting. We confirmed the hiring of the new executive director, Laura Sear. She started her new position on November 1st. November 7th, the Public Works Director and I attended an all-day training session in Augusta. The training is for a 4-year certification for locally administered projects with the Department of Transportation. For myself, it was a renewal, and it'll be a new certification for the director. On November 8th, I attended the Sustainment Maine Coalition's Board of Directors meeting. Members of this group have been working on a few first steps guides. These documents are designed to help municipal decision makers explore new or emerging energy options. The first was about lowering municipal streetlight costs, so that was an interesting document. And then the second, currently in its draft form, is about working with utility scale solar, and the experiences we've had in Fairfield have been a big part of what that document is going to look like. So that was a good piece. November 13th, which was yesterday, I attended the ribbon cutting and open house for the Northern Kennebec Valley Career Center, which was formerly located in Skowhegan, and it's now located at KVCC's Alphon campus in Hinckley. And then last night we had the Central Maine Growth Council's directors meeting, and immediately followed by its annual meeting. This meeting was held at the Hathaway Creative Center. The transformation of this location over the past year is absolutely astounding. I couldn't believe it when I went in there. There's no more retail space left in the building. Everything has been filled. All the residents are filled. I believe there's some commercial space left on the top floor for some business offices that's left available, but it's really amazing how far along that's come. So if folks haven't gone, you should definitely check that out. And then during the last week, we've had Dirigo Engineering come in and take a look at the police department after substantial changes were noted in the way the interior doors were sitting within their casings. Dirigo surveyed of the station has noted a 7.5-inch difference from the back left corner of the building to the front right corner. The building's situation at this time is not considered an immediate safety risk. However, we're continuing to investigate, and we'll be reporting back as we gather additional information about potential solutions for that and, of course, associated costs. And then, as just a general update, work continues with the review of the land lease for the solar project. We hopefully will have that for your next meeting, and if not your next meeting, definitely your first meeting, but in December. So we'll have that good to go. That's it for me.
Thank you. Town clerk report.
Good evening. So for the general and municipal election, the current number of registered voters as of November 6th was 4,353, and that will change as the voter updates continue. The total number of voters that cast ballots times 3 ballots is 2,364. That's roughly a 54.3% turnout, and that will change as the voter updates continue. The total absentee requests that we facilitated were 594, and the number of ballots that were accepted and cast was 564. Most of the rejected ballots were not received by Election Day as required. The new voter registrations and voter registration changes processed on Election Day was 157 with 140 new voters. Again, those numbers could be updated as we go through the cards and review the materials and check the status with the state's central voter registration system. Spoiled ballots, we typically process and administer spoiled ballots on Election Day. Usually there's 5 or less. There were 74 for this election. It was very labor intensive for the wardens and I with the spoiled ballots. Notes for this election, we did obviously have the high volume absentee and the corresponding early processing on Monday, November 5th, and we had a staff of 12, and the process was completed between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. We diminished the staff as we got down to just feeding the tabulators. The election day voter turnout was steady. It was very, very busy, and it was unusual. It got busy in the morning and mid-morning, which usually our busiest time is at supper time and when folks are getting out of work. So that was an unusual flip of the high volume. The tabulators that we are assigned for by the state of Maine, and we have been restricted to the ones we have currently. They take quite a bit of time to slide those ballots through because they're actually scanning the entire ballot. So they're not as fast as our previous equipment, and you're feeding 2 ballots into one state machine and then the municipal ballot machine getting 1 ballot. So there was a lot of time involved with that, and that's where all of our hang-ups were. So the state recommended that we put out an auxiliary box with a staff member, which we did, and let folks know that we would cast those ballots later in the day as we were able, or at the close of polls. And for 2 hours, our state tabulator did go down. It was brought back up rather efficiently by the folks that were assigned to cover the state of Maine. At the end of the day, though, that did mean that we were casting roughly 500 ballots in between voters and about 1,000 ballots at the close of polls. So we didn't actually get to run the tabulator tapes until 10 p.m. And those tapes take longer now because of the ranked choice voting and the scanned declared write-ins. So that took quite a bit of time just to get the wardens going on the tally sheets and the return of votes cast and the triplicate paperwork that comes with that process. I don't think I have anything else that was too significant that I would mention, except to say that obviously it's a huge town collaborative effort. Multiple departments are involved, all of the departments are involved, and we appreciate the co-coordination of the staff and the voters coming out on Election Day, and well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any?
Just to follow up on that real quick, just so that council is aware, we actually changed the way things were done this year for absentee voting. Normally, it was, we were closed for the town clerk's lunch hour, and we got it so that the staff were all properly trained in the building, so to make sure that that didn't happen this year. And it also cut back on the number of ballots that were required to be mailed after people requested them, so we were able to save on some postage. So when Christine mentioned it was a collaborative effort, it truly was over the entire month preceding the election as well as Election Day. So not only, you know, kudos to all of the election clerk and the town clerk on the day, but also to the entire town office staff beforehand. It really worked well for people, and we tried not to turn anybody away, so it worked good.
I did actually, I forgot one other thing. So we are still going to solicit the state for additional tabulators. It's been a struggle. We're still gonna put that forth as this was not acceptable as an alternative, and we would like to receive 2 additional tabulators, and I will be continuing to work on that for the council and the town.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have any committees?
We do not, hopefully next meeting.
Okay. Our 5th order of business, to waive the reading of and accept the minutes as printed or amended for meeting number 2018-18 held on October 24th, 2018.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Our 6th order of business, treasurer's warrant. To approve the treasurer's warrant number 29 in the amount of $528,327.43. And warrant LT1 in the amount of $1,000.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Seventh order of business is take action on the following items of business. Item 18-83, ordered that in accordance with MRSA 30A subsection 2674, the town council hereby authorizes Fairfield Police Chief Gould to sign the police mutual aid agreements with the municipalities of Benton, Clinton, and Skowhegan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carries. Item 18-84, order that the town council schedules the date, time, and location of the annual organizational meeting to be held on January 9th, 2019 at 6:30 PM in council chambers.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, go ahead.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Is that a regular council meeting, or is that an extra one?
It would be considered the regular council meeting should you continue to follow your exact same schedule. So what happens is that technically the 1st of January you have a new council, so the charter reads that it's the first regular scheduled meeting of the council and after the first of the year, but you're going off from your old schedule. So it's just to confirm that it's
So it's gonna
that
be-
second Wednesday of the month.
So it's gonna be January 9th.
I will say, I do like the flexibility in the new version of the charter that we no longer have to meet on January 2nd,
Yes, it makes it,
irrespective of anything else going on in the world.
it makes it much easier.
Okay,
Any other discussion, comments, concerns, questions? No? All those in favor? Motion carries. Item 18-85, order that the town council hereby considers.
Actually, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, just thought of something, which is that while we all may agree that that is a good time and a place, just realized that our counselor-elect actually would need to be at that meeting, and perhaps since he's here, he could just give us his opinion if that date and time works for him.
It works, yeah.
All right, thank you. Just wanted to make sure that seemed important.
This is a regular item that you take up during this time of year, every year.
Sure.
This has been a
Right.
long-standing,
I understand it's a regular item we take up every year. I just figured since his participation would not only be appreciated but expected, that knowing that he can make it would be important.
Are we voting? Did we vote?
You did vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
Item 1885, order that the town council hereby considers a sewer abatement for account number 930 at Main Line LHS for MSAD number 49 in an amount to be determined.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, and now for discussion. What type of, how much of an,
So
Not very much.
this July through September bill that came out in October was for $5,302.40. A large amount of that is attributed to watering the fields during the summer. And there's no, they don't have a meter that would distinguish how much went out into the lawn and how much actually went down into the sewer drain.
correct?
So in years past, which we provided you the previous 4 years worth of July through September bills, which they've run, last year it was $2,794.40. In 2016, it was $4,193.30. In 15, it was $735.30, and the council had granted a $38 abatement during that time frame. So the 735.30 was after that $38 abatement, and then in 2014 it was $782.50. So you could look at it a couple of different ways. One, you could take the average of 2014 through 2017. That average bill would be $2,126.38. So that would be a difference of $3,176.02. Or you could just look at the last 2 years, which seem to be more in line as opposed to the 15 and 14 year, with an average of $3,493.85. So that's a difference of $1,808.55. Or the council could choose not to grant at all. Either way, what I would like to do, though, we're going to suggest that they try to look into a meter for whatever they have going outside. We have the detachable one that we offer to folks for when they're watering their pools. We know that they can be purchased in larger diameter, so that might help for them. And that way, that reading can be taken as well in the fall, and we can automatically credit them for knowing what went out into the fields as opposed to having to do an abatement. So, because we certainly don't want to charge them for water that did not go into the waste treatment facility.
Right. I'm going to vote in favor of this abatement because I think that it's a good idea. That said, I do kind of wonder what happens when a resident comes to us and credibly says, I have a very large lawn that I water. And how are we going to deal with a request for an abatement for somebody saying, I water my lawn with the hose and I shouldn't get charged for the sewer for that?
Well, that's what we have the meters for.
We have the meters for like filling pools and stuff, but I mean, if somebody just goes and buys their own meter and comes in, are we now going to grant abatements every time somebody makes a sort of credible case that they use the water outdoors?
Understandable. And I can't answer that question. That's a council decision.
Well, honestly, I feel like we should be letting people, in some form or fashion, ask for credit for when they're watering their lawn or their garden. I don't think it should be limited to just pools anyways, because none of it goes into our sewers.
My concern about this is that last time we had a situation where we substantially corrected a problem with regard to water flowing into the sewers, we didn't save money. It cost everybody more money. The more that we abate, ultimately, the more everyone who doesn't get an abatement pays in their sewer bill in the long run. So, I mean, when the dam fixed the problem where they were sluicing water into the sewers, the rest of us all of a sudden had to pay more in sewer bills every quarter. So, I think that at a certain point we have to look at whether abating for every use is going to work in the grand scheme of the sewer enterprise. And I think that's a conversation we might need to have with the sewer enterprise, is how much can we sort of take off the books in terms of water usage before we start costing people money in a way that we don't intend.
Can I ask a strange, kind of foolish question, but why is it being watered in the summertime when there's no school or anything else going on over there?
To keep the grass alive.
Yeah, but nobody's using it at the time. I mean, nobody's out there doing anything.
Pal uses it.
Pal uses it a lot during the summertime.
So
That's
it's
their,
they need to keep the football fields and the fields in good working condition. So, and part of that is watering those areas.
Right, and there's quite a bit of stuff goes on.
It's a common practice, not just here, but in a lot of places, and especially considering the volume of heat that we had this summer. Part of that, though, is the potential for a meter on that access point, so that it does get the automatic credit for those that don't go there. I myself, for an example, where I live, I actually have a meter on my hose line at my house, so they both get read at the same time, so that when I do water my lawn or water my garden, I get credit for that towards my sewer bill. And that's a possibility for us to look into that type of program. It's not a program that's been widely it's not practiced at all here in this community, but it is definitely a program that we could look at for folks, because when we pay for the water district, our sewer fees are for maintenance of our lines and facilities, plus the cost for the Kennebec Water District, the Kennebec Sewer District, that if we're not sending them that water, then they obviously wouldn't be charging us for that water either. So I think that there's a way that we could come up with a plan and work towards something for a long-term solution for folks. So
I think that a long-term solution would be important, though, because we are moving towards more and more abatements, and as we start abating thousands of gallons of water every quarter, I want to make sure that we're not just pushing that cost back onto,
Oh, the residents.
back, well, but not the residents, people were trying to help with these abatements, because the
So-
prices for everything else goes up when the water district, or the sewer district needs the money.
The difficulty thing is for a watering of a lawn, per se, when it comes to measurement, it's very minuscule. So it would be one of those things that if you watered your lawn this quarter but didn't water it next quarter, you probably wouldn't even see a difference in your water bill. Typically, if someone comes in and speak to us about an abatement, when we go through things, what we try to make sure before we even bring it to council is an obvious issue. And oftentimes you can see that by looking at bills. When a bill goes from 2,000 during a particular quarter to 5,000, obviously something has happened, and it wasn't just our rate increases, because I did look into that as well. But if somebody comes in and says, my bill's up $50, and I know it's just because I watered my garden, the burden of proof is on that individual, and we would have no way of knowing that. So chances are you're not gonna get an abatement in that respect. So, but I do believe a long-term solution for folks who do, there are avid gardeners that don't, probably water as much as they'd like to because of the cost of everything. So we could look at that in the
Yeah,
future.
well,
Yep.
I think
most
that
of it is minor, so minor, it's like your kid's playing in a sprinkler.
So what we would be looking for is a particular number that needs to be abated, whether either one of these, whether the full 4-year average looks good to you, whether the 1 year, whether just the difference, but you can, there's no specific rule as to what to do for this. It doesn't, we don't have it's not written anywhere that you must take the year's average or that kind of stuff. We just try to get something that's close and fair.
I feel that it would make the most sense to take the average of 2017 and 2016 because the other 2 years are extreme outliers for every single quarter, and where we don't know why it was so vastly different, we probably shouldn't consider that in our decision. Because it's almost like they just didn't use any water whatsoever in 2015 and 2014 compared to 16 and 17.
I mean, I guess, I'm trying to remember when the rate increases came in, though, because those were pretty substantial increases, too.
April 17?
Yeah, it wasn't.
April 17.
And there
I
was
think.
no abatement request in 16 or 17.
Right.
Right.
Last year and this year have been exceptionally dry. I mean, I would probably take
Yes,
last year
would be.
last year as a baseline, because the previous years, they were rather wet years, rather wet summers. So I'd probably look at the 2 driest seasons and probably take an average of those 2.
Yep.
So that's the 17 and 16 year.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so that average was $3,493.85. So the abatement would be $1,808.55. That would get you to that average.
1,008 what?
$808.55.
1,808.55.
All right, I'll amend my motion then to put a figure on there of $1,885.55.
I'll second the motion to amend.
It's amended. Do we have anybody object to the amendment? No objections? Okay, so on item 1885 then, for the abatement, is there any other discussion? Concerns, questions? Speak now? No? All those in favor? Motion carries.
Ooh.
Okay. Our 8th order of business, council workshop and other business. Number 1, discuss public safety ordinance, Article 5, precious metals.
I do have an updated version that was given to you this evening, if you had picked up your packets beforehand.
Yep.
It's for the pawn shop, is it not?
Yeah, it's-
Yes, it's the pawn shop piece.
yeah, this is the old
I went over that.
one that we had.
Yeah, and the change from tonight was just a slight change. It was just to correct some wording under section 6 regarding the fees being set by the town council, and it'll be in the town of Fairfield's fee schedule annually, to include the cost of public hearing. That's really the only difference, and I think a comma somewhere and a capital letter from when you received it the last time.
So I have no issue with the wording added to cover precious metals. However, reviewing this did remind me of a problem I've had with this ordinance in the past, which is section 3B uses the phrase, 3 garage sales per year excluded from regulation under section 11. I would say that section 11 doesn't really exclude them from regulation. It just puts them under a different set of regulations than other vendors. Even though there's no fee, they're still required to get a permit. They have to register the sale with the police department. The town clerk has to register the sale with the police department, and then there's, under section 12, a number of regulations they do have to comply with. So I would just suggest, for clarity for residents who are going to interact with the garage sale portion of this, that rather than say excluded from regulation, just say subject to regulation under section 11.
That's a better wording for that.
I think that it's trying to say that the first 3, for one reason or another, aren't subject to section 11, but after that, you're required.
I don't think that that's what it says at all, because it says that after that, you're deemed to be a secondhand junk dealer, and then there's a whole different set of regulations for
Oh, yeah.
that.
Yep. Oh,
Yeah, so now, I agree, I don't like that.
good catch. I've read this like 3 times too, and I completely missed that, so good catch.
I looked over it too. So.
Yeah. That was my thought.
And then, so this way, and then really the only other thing we were doing is, we did clean up some of the wording and fonts and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But the precious metals piece, for folks listening at home, that includes someone who would be buying and selling things like gold and silver, as opposed to just your regular pawn shop. We were not aware that this had existed until someone actually went to get their license in a neighboring community, and they also had the pawn shop ordinance, but they did not have the precious metals. So it brought it to our attention, and we're just being proactive to try to get it taken care of before somebody does come knocking on the door.
Okay.
Works.
So in this ordinance, being part of the larger public safety ordinance, we've been going through that in all of its various articles, so to know that when we do finally conduct the public hearing and go over to adopt all of the things that we've been working on, we'll do it in one big piece as opposed to each one individually. So you have some other pieces that we've already worked on, the taxi cab licensing, fees being removed from the ordinance, the noise ordinance that we're still conducting some research on and looking into. And I think there's one more piece of this that we'll be working on to be bringing to you, and then we'll collectively put everything together, so.
That seems like a fine strategy. I would just say one thing: if we do get an investment opportunity where this would hold it up, I would like to see this come to us for a vote so that we don't
We certainly
delay somebody,
we would.
having a business opportunity.
Yep.
We haven't heard of any, but that doesn't mean they're not right around the corner, so we could easily get it scheduled for your next meeting if we had to, so.
That would be a good idea.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, let's see. Other council business. Courtney,
Nothing for me.
Beverly,
No,
John.
Nothing other than I would like to, again, congratulate the staff on the voting day, and as bad as it was, I've never seen crowds that were outside the door in mid-morning. And they did a very, very good job, and yeah, I mean, they were dealing with wounded equipment and
Yep.
still did a good job and kept everybody happy, and
Nice.
didn't hear a whole lot of ugly stuff going on.
Not a lot of grumbling.
Not a lot of grumbling.
That's
Yes.
good. Aaron?
I want to join in that sentiment as well, having been here on election day. It was really very well run, especially given the surprising crowds that there were that were there at times. I do also want to just give a quick announcement that the Recycled Shakespeare Company will be doing a free play at the Skills Building on Front Street in Waterville on Friday and Saturday nights at 7 p.m. And I will actually be making a guest appearance in the cast, so come on out to the play.
Nice, thank
Emily
you.
invited me too, so.
What was
I
the
might be
date
there.
again, Aaron?
I'm sorry?
What was the date again
It's Friday and Saturday at 7.
of this weekend coming?
Yes.
And I would like to thank all the residents of the town of Fairfield that turned out to vote. It was great to see such a large turnout. And that is all I have for this evening. The next regular meeting of the Fairfield Town Council will be on Wednesday, November 28th, 2018. And at this time, we will recess. Do we have any documents that require signing this evening?
Yes, 2 warrants.
2 warrants.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So, we have a motion for recess.
So moved.
Second.
We are in recess.